Welcome to Krav Life. My name is Paul Simos, and today on Train to Fight, we have Miss Stephanie Numrich, who's going to be talking about Krav Maga and how to teach Krav Maga to children. So it's actually going to be very interesting and insightful, especially to instructors out there. Now, did you know that we have a community? That's right. We've got our Krav Life Community Network. So this is a place where Kravists can communicate with each other, network, learn new things. So be sure to join it and get in on the action. Just go to mykravlife.com and click on community and join it for free. All right. So without further delay, here's Stephanie Numrich. So, welcome, Stephanie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. So, you have developed a Krav Maga program for children, correct?
Correct. Yes, I did.
Awesome. So, for the audience members that don't know who you are, can you give us just a brief overview of who you are, where you're instructing, and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and so we run a school out here. My husband and I run a school out here. I was introduced to martial arts through him in our early 20s, and he started doing JKD. So we did JKD for many years in Chicago. And about 10 to 11 years ago, we found this art called Krav Maga, and the self-defense system, I should say. And we just fell in love with it for so many reasons. And we decided to transition to Krav. And so that's kind of where we are now. We're teaching Krav only. However, once you have JKD in your blood, it never goes away. So it does come out every once in a while. But we are a Krav only school right now. So we teach adults and we also have a youth program.
Okay. So can you kind of, so what you said there was interesting. Can you kind of just expand a little bit more on, because you're like, once you have JKD in your blood, like I've never done Jeet Kune Do, but I know the core philosophy is basically the same as Krav Maga, which is, take what's useful and dump the rest.
Absolutely.
So like what sort of, what is different with Jeet Kune Do versus Krav?
I think Jeet Kune Do is definitely more technical. I think that people go into it for the love of the art. They want to know the why, the technical side of it. I think Krav uses technique in a way to lessen that strength size difference. When you're going up against somebody who's bigger and stronger than you. But Krav is really about motion and movement and how to get in there and fight like an animal or a beast to get out so you can get away. Where JKD is a little bit more technical and really learning your technique and honing in on that technique. So I think there's a difference there. But Krav, we really do use our technique, in choke defenses, things like that, to lessen that strength size difference.
That's kind of cool. So let's talk about your background. So you're not a martial artist that came into everything and then developed a kids program. You actually have a background in education, correct?
Yeah. So my degree is in elementary education. So I taught middle school and high school for 15 years. So I was in the classroom for quite a while, and I taught everything from gifted to special ed. So I really ran the whole gamut of where a kid could be in the education system. So I did that, and I really loved. I always have had a passion for kids and teaching them and seeing that light bulb come on for them. That is the best feeling in the whole world. So I just decided, hey, like I could transfer that over to this passion that I now have of teaching self-defense. And because there wasn't a youth program, I said, hey, like I'm going to create this and I'm going to make this easy for me because I'm teaching it, but I also want to make it easy for other people to use as well. So just taking that education background, I think, and knowing how to keep a kid focused, how to keep a kid interested, how to keep them motivated, has really helped me in the Krav classroom.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. So I've talked to, you know, a bunch of different studio owners and Krav experts, and it runs the gamut. Like, some believe that Krav can be taught to children. Some believe that it can't be, not truly taught to children. What sort of modifications, if any, do you have to make to Krav in order to have children learn it without it just becoming like a karate program that we call Krav Maga, right?
Sure. That's a great question. And when I brought it to the head of our association, Mark Slane, who was very open to talk to me about that, but had the exact same question of why would we teach that to kids and like how would that be different? And for me, I guess my answer was the same answer is why we should teach females, because a lot of Krav people think that females really aren't able to do Krav at the same ability or capacity as a male can. But for me, what Krav has done in my own personal life has really given me a sense of empowerment and confidence that other martial art had not done and other forms of fitness or activities had never done. And so when I came to the head of our association, I said, if I can just empower a child enough to have the confidence that if something bad should happen to them, whether it's a bully situation, a predator situation, whatever, if they have that love for themselves and confidence in themselves to go and tell somebody and get help, then I feel like I've won. And that's really what it's about, is teaching these kids to love themselves, to feel confident about themselves and feel empowered that if something should happen, they can take care of themselves and they can get help afterwards if needed. And that I feel is so valid and so important to raising this next generation for us. So that was really, I do teach the same curriculum that we teach the adults. Now, does that mean I teach it exactly the same way? No. We have many discussions in my class about when and why you could use a headbutt and eye gouge and things like that, where definitely the more brutal sides of our system, and how we don't use that against, the dog or, younger sibling and things like that. So we have many discussions about when and why we would use these moves. We put it in practicality. So we talk a lot about bully situations, and if somebody should grab you at a park, if somebody should try to take you, if somebody should bear hug you and try to drag you somewhere. So we talk about it in real life circumstances and why we would use these moves, not just because we're mad because we have to clean our room or because somebody took our toy or something like that. I really stress the importance of using this in a way that's only to defend themselves. That being said, though, once again, we use the same moves the adults do. And that's because what I loved about Krav is because those moves that we use are simple, but they're so effective that a 7-year-old can do a groin kick, and get away. So an 8-year-old or 9-year-old can get themselves out of some kind of headlock or choke, whatever, by using the simple moves like groin strikes and head strikes. So that's what I love about Krav.
So do the kids have to use a bit more on the combative side to achieve their goals? Because like for them, if they're in some sort of chokehold or even a headlock, like you mentioned, it's a lot harder for them to get the leverage, especially against an adult.
Yes. So we often talk in class about combatives. That's one of my favorite words, and because I'm always saying use more combatives, use more combatives. We talk about how one strike is not going to do it. One time trying to get out of a chokehold or whatever is not going to do it. That we continue to fight, until somebody comes to help us or we can escape. So we oftentimes will use one move, and then I am saying, okay, what would you use right after that? What would you use right after that? What would you use right after that? So it's definitely about sequencing different moves together and having them know that because of their size or because of their strength level, that it's never going to be a one shot thing, right? It's going to be, you have to keep fighting. You have to stay in that game until you can get away. And that's another reason we use just the whole fitness part of it too, is we talk about your hearts have to be healthy. We have to be strong. We have to be able to continually to hit, kick, punch, yell, scream, all that stuff, to get through that and to get away, or to have somebody recognize that we're in trouble and come help us. So yeah, it's definitely more about the packing on those combatives one after one after one after another. So,
okay. And is part of the, or how much of the curriculum is the emphasis on stuff like situational awareness and prevention and de-escalation and all that stuff?
So yeah, definitely we talk about if we're talking about bully situation or even predator situation. I think especially in this day and age where everybody's on their cell phone, the awareness level is so
Yeah.
down, and so we talk a lot about just being aware of your surroundings and how that in itself is a self-defense tool. And knowing what's going on around you, knowing if we talk about instincts, and how we often have that feeling. I tell them in your tummy, that weird feeling in your tummy, like, and we talk about instincts versus just not being aware of what you're at, who you're with, whatever. We talk about different situations of like, okay, maybe you're at somewhere that you feel comfortable, but you're with people who you don't feel comfortable with. Or maybe it's the opposite. You're with people that you're comfortable with, but you're maybe not in a place that you feel comfortable. And how do you stay aware and alert? And how do you figure out escape routes? We talk about that, how to get away. Who do you go to for help? Who's an okay person? Who's not an okay person? So yeah, it's a lot about prevention. In my classroom, it's a lot about let's don't ever get to that point. Even with bully situations at school, it's like, don't be alone. Don't find yourself in places where you're alone or you can't get to an adult. Try to. We go through actual role playing with them of what happens if somebody just starts verbally attacking you. What can you say? What can you do to just bring that down? So it is more about prevention. Obviously, we would love that to not happen. And then we give them options if it continues, what they can do to defend themselves.
So do you do a lot of that scenario-based training with the kids?
Yeah, so every month, and this is part of the program that I created, every month we have a character topic, we have a bully topic, and then we have a predator topic. So every month we're talking about different things. So the bully topic can be simple things like, we role play. What happens if somebody's verbally saying something to you, is being hurtful? What do you say in return so that you're not going to escalate that situation where they're not going to continue to come down on you? Predator topics might be like we talk a lot about, not just yelling or screaming, but saying things like, "This is not my mom or dad." If somebody tries to grab you, because we really talk about, parents hear that screaming all the time in their heads because kids are just that way. And I said, so we talk a lot about, parents may tune that out. So what can we say to get people's attention? So yeah, we're definitely talking about real life scenarios of what can happen and what can you do. And not only do we talk about it, we then practice it, because that's what's the important part, is that it comes out of them instinctually. Whether it is a kick, a wrist escape, it's a saying you're not my mom or dad, whatever it is, that needs to be something that they've practiced and done and feel comfortable with, so that it comes out in times of need.
That's pretty neat. So let's say, so teaching adults is way different than teaching kids. Like the focus level on adults and it is completely different from kids, because sometimes you have your kids class and they're just not all there, right? How do you address that in the curriculum, especially when you're teaching stuff that can potentially, like, they could get hurt if they're not focusing or listening? Like how do you address that in a class?
Well, the great thing about Krav, again, I think, not to compare it again to traditional arts, but I do
Mhm.
love Krav because we're completely moving all the time, right? It's in motion. So that just in itself, I feel, is a help that maybe traditional arts don't have. But I've also designed things where they're doing things like relay races, obstacle courses, drills, games, where they don't know that they're learning. Um, they just think they're doing something fun, but they're
Mhm.
practicing the moves maybe against a heavy bag after they've gone down a ladder, or maybe they've jumped over pads to get to something, and then they're practicing their moves against an assistant of mine or something, like that. So I really like to incorporate different things, a lot of movement, a lot of change, so that they don't get bored. That's part of the focus problem, is they get bored. And so we do, like I said, we do relay races, we do obstacle courses, we do a lot of agility stuff.
Mhm.
Something that I have found, I was not a PE teacher, I was a math teacher. So something that I've found now teaching self-defense is, our kids aren't getting a lot of PE anymore, in
Mhm.
school. And so it's interesting for me when a child comes in and they don't know how to skip, or they don't know how to jump rope. They don't know how to do simple basic things that you and I learned as a child in PE class. So a
Mhm.
lot of times they come to me with very poor balance, agility, hand-eye coordination, a lot of that. So we have to build a lot of that, with incoming students, so that they can punch and kick and hit a pad or a target without potentially hurting their partner or one of my assistants. So a lot of times that's the foundation that we have to start with is, okay, how do you get your body to move the way that you want it to move? How do you control your movements? How do you intensify your movements? And so how do we start at a level that's okay, where we're learning,
Mhm.
and then how do we build that so that we're getting stronger, and doing harder kicks and punches?
Okay.
So we do a lot of that stuff as well, just agility building. So, and the
Okay.
kids love that.
Yeah. 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 They love running around and stuff.
Exactly.
Um, so so how do you have like the curriculum broken up for the kids? Because obviously, a level one or whatever, because you're with USKMA, right?
I am. Yeah.
Or I don't know whether you guys use belts or levels. Uh, to like, it's not a one for one sort of thing, right? So it's not
Right.
like level one kid is the same as a level one adult. Like, how does that translate?
So yeah, so we do levels. Basically, how I have divided the curriculum is I've divided the curriculum kind of up into 3 month,
Mhm.
a 3 month cycle. And we do stripes like a traditional art would. We don't do belts and gis, but we do t-shirt colors for our kids. So every level they go to, they change to a different t-shirt. But within their level, they get stripes on that they can put on their arms. So they have to pass, the stripe, 4 stripes to get to the next level. So I've broken down that curriculum so that it's easier to digest. An adult can digest a whole,
Mhm.
level one curriculum and be able to test that. But for kids, 7, 8, 9 year olds, if I try to just do that without any kind of breaking points, I just found that that was too much for them to handle. So I've broken it down, and we test in 3 month increments. That keeps them on track. That gives them something to look forward to. That's not this big long goal, but they can stay focused on just that 3 month period. And again, within that 3 month period, we build in the character
Mhm.
topics, the bully topic, and the predator topics within those 3 months as well. So they, are also held accountable for that information. But that really helps them stay on track. It gives them a little, incentive, to get their stripe. They love getting their stripes. They love putting their stripes on, seeing how many stripes they have, and seeing that the work that they are putting in and working great for us.
Okay. Um, Now, when you say stripes, like what do you mean? Where do they put it?
It's an
What is it?
iron on patch
Okay.
they put here. Yep. So it's again like probably more like a traditional art would, that they maybe somebody put on their belt or whatever, but they just iron on a little patch right here, and it
Mhm.
shows me how many cycles they have gone through. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then
That's
they'll
cool.
test then they'll do a big test at the end to go to another level. But they've already then tested that material at least once, if not twice, before they test the whole big level. Does that make sense?
Okay,
Yeah.
so is it like a rotating curriculum then?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So they will repeat that that 3 month block again
Yes.
before they do their phase test sort of thing.
Yes. So I've basically broken down the level 1 curriculum into 2 3-month blocks. So they will get, so they need 4 stripes. So each block they will get twice, before they test for the next level.
Okay.
I've really found that helps them retain the
Hmm.
information. Them only going through it once. I've found a lot of kids falling through the cracks. But going through it twice, they were really like, oh yes, I remember this now. And oh yeah, now it's becoming more easy for them to pick up and figure out when to use it. So that just seems to be the best for us. They've been doing great. So
Now, do you name the blocks, or like different, like, or do they know that that first level 1 is going to take them an entire year? Like,
yeah,
are they?
they know from the get-go that they need 4 stripes to begin to level up. It's
Mhm.
something that I go over with the parents right from the beginning, and we often send reminders too when it becomes time for stripe test of like, stripe test is important. This is how your kids move on and show what they're learning. So that becomes an important, exciting time for them. Actually, they love having their parents come in and see them do their moves from memory. Obviously they need to know it without me showing them. So they love that aspect of just showing what they know. But yeah, they know from the beginning that they need 4 stripes before moving on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so is it 4 stripes for each level, and how many levels do you have, and where do they transition, or how do they transition to an adult program?
So yeah, so currently right now, I am up to level 4 with my students. I have 4 different youth groups. But yes, they need 4 stripes for each level. That's how
Mhm.
they move on to the next one. Transitioning to the adult program is somewhat delicate of a matter that Matt
Mhm.
and I really sit down and talk about kids individually, because technically by word, my youth program only goes up to 12. And our adult program is 13 and above. But that 11, 12 range, kids can be so different. They can be so different emotionally, intellectually, and definitely physically. So when they get to that 11, 12 range, I often will sit down and say to Matt, hey, I'm thinking this kid is already ready. He may only be 11, but he's, 5'8", and he's a big
Mhm.
kid and he's ready to go. But I might have somebody who's 12 who's still really little and maybe very timid and shy and would really be lost in the adult program. So I'm going to keep that person in the youth until she gets a little bit more confident or he gets a little bit more confident. So
Mhm.
around that 11, 12 range, we have a lot of discussions about kids individually and where we think the best program is for them. And then we talk to their parents, and talk to them. We usually have meetings with them and say, hey, are you ready to go to the adult program? Do you feel like that would be a good incentive for you to, something new, something different? You're going to, it's a different intensity, obviously, the adult program versus the youth program. They don't play as many games as I play. So we talk a lot about that with both of them and make a decision all together.
So what happens if you have like a 13-year-old that's not ready
I
for the
keep them.
program?
I actually have a 14-year-old who is a level 4, and she's just her and her sisters all come together, and she's not ready to leave her sisters. So, and I have no problem with that. She does a great job, and she helps. She's a good assistant too. She helps with the little ones, corral them, and so she loves being where she's at. And I think in the next year, her other sister will be ready to move on. I think they'll probably move on together, and that's perfectly okay.
Hmm. Okay.
I would never put a 14-year-old with like a 6-year-old. So in my level 1 class, they are divided up by age. So my 6 to 9 year olds are all in one group. And then depending on where they're at 9, 10, 10 to 11, 12, they're in another group. So I never put, like I said, like I would never put a 12-year-old with a 6-year-old. I would never put those two together to train. It's just not good training practices. Those two are not going to get the same thing out of a class if they're training together as an 11 and a 10-year-old would do together, or a 6 and a 7-year-old would do together. So I do try to keep them separated, just size wise, so they can really train the moves in a way that's realistic. And then they can, take that outside of class as well.
Cool. All right. So that's the transition. Now, how is the actual structure of the individual class? Like, how does that work? Like, because you just said you had, like, you have, what is that, 6 to 12 years old? Like, do you have a smaller class, like under 6 as well?
No.
Do you start everything at 6?
Yeah, I do. I do evaluate at 5. If a parent comes to me and says, I have a 5-year-old and I really think they're ready, I always will say, okay, bring them in. Let's see how they do. If they've never been in school, it's a difficult thing to transition to Krav. If they've never been in a sport, if they don't have older siblings, that's always really hard for a 5-year-old. They're really young.
Yeah.
And again, the just balance, hand-eye coordination, all of those things that I talked about before are really hard for a 5-year-old. If they've never done anything before, like I said, like they've never done a sport, they've never sat through school. So they don't know what it is to sit and focus through a 45-minute class. They don't have older siblings who they maybe have seen do things, or, older siblings just help a lot. So I evaluate at 5, but I prefer them to wait to 6. I think that just that year of school and doing things on their own, getting a little bit more independent, that kind of stuff really helps the focus and the motivation inside Krav. So that's kind of where my cutoff is. But yes, I do separate, even in the level 1 class, I separate them. I call them youth and juniors. And so my youth is that 6 to 9, and my juniors is the 10 to 12 group. We all start together in class. So we warm up, stretch out. We all do that together as a big group. And then oftentimes sometimes I'll go right to a drill. So to get them moving right from the beginning. Or maybe some kind of agility thing to get them moving right from the beginning. So we still kind of stay together as a class then. And then I will oftentimes, if I'm demonstrating something new, maybe it's a new technique, new move, whatever, after I've demonstrated a whole class, I will pull those two groups apart. My juniors do a lot of stuff partner-wise. So they'll get partnered up, padded up, all that stuff and they'll start working on whatever we just learned. My youth then will oftentimes work with an assistant and do stuff against an assistant, do something against a heavy bag. Just again, because they're learning some of those motor skills for the first time, and maybe if we're doing, knees or something, I just don't want a 6-year-old getting kneed in the face. So a lot of times the younger kids will do it against a padded assistant, heavy bag, that kind of stuff. And then once they have that down, then I can transition them to partner. But the first time I ever show the younger kids that, I really do like it to have it in a more safe environment. And then I can help transition them to partner with.
Okay.
After that, after we learn technique, we'll maybe do something fun like obstacle course, relay race. And then we have our mat chat time. So we talk about the character topic, we talk about predator topic, whatever we're talking about that day. And then I try to end with a game, end on a high note, something positive, fun. It still incorporates whatever we're doing, but it's just doing it in a fun way. So, and we always end that way.
Okay. All right. So your program, does your program have an official name, or?
I have a website. Yeah, it's youthkravmaga.com/instructor. So yeah, it's you can find all the information on there. I really have put everything together that you would need to do a program. So I've done weekly lessons for you. I've written out all the mat chats. I've given you all the predator topics, all of the bully topics. I've written all that out for you. I've given you all the games that we play with instruction. So it really is an easy program to just take and start doing. I think it's great. I think it's great for somebody. I think that's a group. If you're not doing kids, and you've thought about doing kids, I think this is a great way to just transition. Obviously, you can add to it, change it, whatever you want to do with your program, but it really gives the bones of it. It really from day to day for that whole 6-month chunk, and then you can just repeat it for that whole year if you want to do a year with your students. So it depends on what kind of a program, how long of a program you want, but very easy to just really adapt to what you're doing.
All right. So that's kind of answers my next question. So this is something that's available to any Krav Maga studio. It's not necessarily through the USKMA.
Right. Right now we have, the USKMA is our sponsor for it. Like I developed it for them, but I have now kind of just seen that other Krav schools have loved it and wanted it, and so now it's available for anyone.
Perfect. All right, Stephanie, this has been a very interesting subject. I know I've talked about it in some of my emails and stuff, like whether kids should be learning Krav Maga, and my personal feeling on that is that everybody has the right to defend themselves, right?
Right.
So I think what might be holding a lot of instructors back is not knowing how to teach kids rather than whether they should be taught. And so it's very interesting. I encourage you to join our community, our Krav Life community, and then that way people can reach out to you directly and maybe answer some teaching questions or something like that in the community for people.
Yeah, I have a huge passion, like I said, for youth, and I have a huge passion for people who want to teach youth. It's a different game than teaching adults for sure, but it's not as difficult as you think. They want to learn. They get just as excited about it as the adults do. And again, I think whether you're talking a 45-year-old male or a 6-year-old female, we want to give them those tools to not only build confidence in themselves, but to not be a victim, and to learn to defend themselves when needed. If we can, or if I can help in any way to help other instructors see that kids, that I have seen so many kids come in to my class shy, crying, hiding behind their parents' legs, and now have blossomed into these confident, little fierce fighting little kids that it makes me so happy that they have just created in themselves this worth and confidence that they're now they take throughout their whole life, right? Like it's not just in Krav. They take that confidence into school, and they take that confidence at home, and it just changes their whole persona. And that's what's so exciting to me as being an instructor for youth. So absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you for developing that program, and thank you for coming on Krav Life, and wish you the best of luck with it, and hopefully we can get you on again in the future.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
All right. You take care.
You too.